Well, I'm going to start opening this Waterford in honor of the Greeks, with this Arcadia in barley. You already know that Waterford bottles are also known for being very geeky. Hello, dear friends of Talking About Whiskey, your favorite whiskey channel. My name is Eduardo, and here we are again making another interesting video about the world of whiskey. What the hell is a video on a channel called Talking About Whiskey going to be about? Well, whiskey. But today's video is a bit special, and I'm going to explain why. Not because of the whiskey itself, but because of the tangent it takes. Today we are going to taste this Waterford Heritage, the Hunter, a 50% volume bottle from one of the distilleries that I like the most. And before pouring the whiskey, what a coincidence that I turn the bottle around and see that it says Arcadian barley. Arcadian barley, you know, let's see. I'm not sure if this has a direct relationship with Arcadia in Greece, which you know is a small town in Greece where the term Arcadia comes from. Arcadia is supposed to be a place where everything is very balanced. A very bucolic place, practically. A kind of small paradise for the Greeks. A town that I believe still exists. So, it really caught my attention that this name makes a kind of analogy, you say, because of the natural flavors. It's like a very bucolic, very natural place, Arcadia. And it caught my attention because this summer I was in Greece with my family. An unforgettable vacation. We had an incredibly good time. And I have always been a great enthusiast of ancient history, especially Greek history. For me, after the fall of the Roman Empire, I'm not very interested in what happens until the Industrial Revolution because it's more of the same. We enter a bit into the Middle Ages, a little kingdom here and there, then more or less the Renaissance and the Industrial Revolution. After that, I'm not really interested in much of what happens in humanity there because the truth is that practically nothing happens. It's practically 1,000 and some years thrown in the trash. The Western world is not aware. I believe that the relevance and importance of the Greek social model has been lost. But it is not only the Greek social model that creates the polis and creates democracy, that creates science. It lays the foundations of what modern Western society is. It creates rights and obligations. You Romans have to keep in mind that all you do is basically copy. You take and copy the Greek model to such an extent that we talk about the Greco-Roman model. Greece has a crucial importance for our society. I always have great respect for the Greek people. In fact, among the little flags I have here, some of you have asked, hey, why do you put those little flags? Well, I have to add the flag of Greece. The countries that I love the most are listed there, where I have a stronger emotional connection or for some reason. There's Spain, obviously I'm Spanish. There's the USA, which for me is my second home. I've always felt very comfortable in the USA. There is Venezuela, my wife is from Venezuela, and I have a great attachment to the Venezuelan people. There is Argentina, because Argentina and Mexico are the two countries that follow the channel the most after Spain. In fact, I think Argentina is even above Spain. And I have to add the Greek flag because although I don't have many Greek friends, I do have some who live there. Frankly, Greece is a country that I have read a lot about in terms of ancient history, but of course it is a, let's say, country in the modern sense, because in the year 500 BC, which is when classical Greece was somewhat forged, so to speak, it originated everything and then the others just copied that. Read about the Greek world. You see that I have here a statue of my great beloved Diogenes of Sinope, who was a brutal Greek figure. This summer we were in the Peloponnese. There you have places like Sparta, Corinth. While walking through Corinth, I remembered that famous story I read about Alexander the Great and Diogenes. Diogenes was a philosopher who was quite mad, born in the year 400 in some area of Turkey, in what was then Anatolia, if I am not mistaken, but he lived most of his life in Corinth. One day Alexander the Great realized this, the greatest conqueror of antiquity. Everyone was terrified, right? Imagine him walking through Corinth. But as they would say, he was crazy as hell, carrying a lantern to illuminate men. One dog, Diogenes the dog, because he lived among the garbage, in a jar. Because Diogenes was a guy who had renounced all material things, and lived practically in conditions of absolute austerity. One day Alexander the Great. As Alexander the Great knew that Diogenes was in that city, he wanted to visit him because he knew he was an important philosopher. The thing is that Alexander the Great was walking through Corinth and found Diogenes lying on the ground there with the trash, those things. And he said to him, "Are you Diogenes?" And Diogenes said, "Yes, and you are Alexander the Great." And he asked, "What can I do for you, Diogenes?" And Diogenes said, "Well, you could step aside because you are blocking the sun and casting a shadow on me. I mean, just look at the character this guy was." It seems that Alexander had quite a bit of respect for Diogenes because he was a man who spoke the truth. And Diogenes replied to Alexander, "But how do you say this to me?" "Aren't you afraid of me?" Diogenes asked him. "But are you a good or a bad person?" Alexander replied, "I think a good person." Then Diogenes said, "Then why should I fear anything from you? I mean, a character with a lot of guts." Anecdotes like these and things like going to Corinth, walking around there, thinking that Alexander the Great and Diogenes have walked and argued there. Or go to Sparta, for example, stand next to the Temple of Athena or the Theater of Sparta and think that Leonidas might have been there before heading out to battle against the Persians. Of course, these are things that emotionally, truly impress far beyond the Acropolis and the Parthenon, which is amazing. And to think that the great philosophers were there, etc., the great Pericles and Phidias and others. But of course, these are things that if you go to Greece and read a bit about Greece, you feel what you step on and what you touch. It is very difficult in the world to surpass this, because think that before these people, we were just a bunch of goat herds killing each other with sticks until they came and started to bring some order. But they begin to bring some order in a very sophisticated way, in a very complex manner, with models of thought, models of government, and rational models that were very advanced for their time. It has been a trip that I recommend you take, with incredible beaches, kindness, and then a level of civility and respect for others, an impressive thing. So I highly recommend it. And well, I'm going to open this Waterford in honor of the Greeks in this Arcadia in barley. You already know that Waterford bottles are also known for being very geeky. The stopper is made of glass, entirely of glass. It doesn't have a rubber seal, which is very interesting, and believe me, it's one of the richest and most interesting whiskies, in my opinion, that there is. The problem with Waterford is that they are very expensive. One bottle costs you 80, 90, 100. I got this one thanks to Borja La Pochola, who had it kind of, I don't know, either discontinued or something. Well, he had it around and gave it to me at a very good price. They let me have it for about $70, but it's worth it. Every Waterford you buy is worth it. It's very difficult to find a bad Waterford. They are intense whiskies, young whiskies, 50%, but a marvel in their construction, in their elaboration, in general. So well, of course, if I'm not mistaken, without coloring and unchill filtered, without anything exactly. The type of barley is Hunter barley, water and yeast. Well, let's see what we find on the nose here. Really, these are some notes. To bread, to pastries. Barley, 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 barley. The cereal is that it is very, very, very impressively rich. There are also notes reminiscent of essential oils, very intense resins, and some delicious Exburn-Usen woods. And I get the feeling that there is some type of wine wood as well. Incredible. Incredible note. It is a single malt by far, but we have barley, wood, notes like suede, yeast, and bun. It is somewhat dry, not a sweet whiskey on the nose, not at all. There are some notes like anise, but a very dry anise as well. Also some notes like a bit of bitter orange, and a very, very, very intense, very strong liquor note. Certainly on the nose, absolutely delicious. Remember, 50%. Let's see how it tastes. Cheers. Look, it never fails, really. Waterford is a true masterpiece. It is wood. It is intense. It is not an especially sweet whiskey, a whiskey that tends to be a bit dry. It is not a very complex whiskey at the moment in terms of taste and notes, but an absolutely superb whiskey that is intense, strong, woody, with resins, and some tannins from the wood. It is a young whiskey, somewhat dry, I tell you, somewhat astringent, but truly, really delicious. Waterford never disappoints, truly, never, 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 never. It is an absolutely incredible whiskey. A lot of wood, a lot of cereal, a lot of resin, a lot of liquor notes, somewhat dry. A whiskey like those from the Highlands, very special, very intense. But above all, the most impressive thing about this whiskey is the cereal note, the bread note. The bread note is like actually having one of those rustic breads. Very strong, almost like rye, you know. It's that kind of flavor note, and after 10, I mean, it's to say that there is no alcohol on the nose of any kind. And above all, the cereal note, truly one of the richest whiskeys you can find and enjoy. Well, folks, that's it for today's tasting. Do not forget something very important, that what matters is not the latest invention, but the one who made the first invention. The important thing is not the one who builds the spaceship. The important thing is the one who puts the means in your head so that you can build the spaceship. The spaceship will arrive sooner or later, but if a stable society, if a democracy without a scientific model, if a science without such a space, it will never arrive. Well, very delicious whiskey, very interesting Greece, very interesting Diogenes, Alexander the Great, don't forget. Read a lot about them. Always drink in moderation, as I say. See you in the next video talking about whiskey if you want, of course, and be very happy, which is the most important thing. Because if we are not moderately happy, then as I always say, why did we come to this world? Take good care of yourself, mate, girl, big hug. See you soon. Bye.